Hello, my name is AJ Goldsby. I'm a life master from Pensacola, Florida. And today I wanted to bring you a video. This is game number 10 of the World Championship match that was held in Sochi, Russia in November of 2010. This will conclude my coverage of these matches, of these games rather. And in this particular game, Viswanathan Anand is white, Magnus Carlsen is black. Anand is down a game here. He's kind of running out of time. Usually at this level, white is the best time to consider to try to win the game. So he's running out of time in games. He only has games 10, 11, and 12. And if he doesn't win one of these, then he's just basically not even going to see a tiebreaker. Carlsen will win the match. So, this is game number 10. And also, too, just to mention briefly, two of what I think are the best books on the Grunfeld ever written was number one was The Grunfeld Defense by William R. Hartston. It's in descriptive notation and was published back in the 70s, but has extremely good explanation of some of the ideas and strategy in the Grunfeld. And also another very good book on the Grunfeld is Understanding the Grunfeld by Jonathan Rowson. Now, Rosen. You can improve upon these books with computer engine analysis. However, again, the explanations I think is what makes the book. And number two, it's the ideas that it imparts to the lower rated player, in my mind, are priceless. So those are two really good books on the Grunfeld, two that I can recommend to the reader that I have in my library. I have just about all the books ever published on the Grunfeld, but those are two that stand out in my mind. Anyway, let's go ahead and just jump into the game. Again, Anand is white, Carlsen is black, and this is game number 10. The game starts off d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, d5, knight f3, bishop g7, queen b3. This is what of a lot of the older books called the Russian system. It's one of the sharpest ways of meeting the Grunfeld. Basically, white tries to attack the center and force black to immediately concede the d5 square. Many times, black can play c6, but then I think oftentimes he's thought to get a rather passive and inferior game. So most of the time, black will exchange on c4. So we continue 5, d takes c4, queen takes c4, white castles, e4, knight a6. This is called the Prince system. Now another very sharp line here is a6. That was what a lot of the grandmasters were playing a few years back. An extremely sharp line, and that's another line that black can play in these lines. But in this line, black plays knight a6, which is known as the Prince system. Bishop e2, that's just good development. White's tried lots of different moves here, but and bishop e3 is probably the most popular, but obviously there's nothing wrong with bishop to e2. And black, basically, what he's trying to do is get in c5 as quickly as possible. The idea is that black must counterattack white's big center. If white's able to maintain his big center, then generally that's an advantage for white. So c5, d5, e6, Carlsen immediately begins ripping up the center, and all these moves are booked. Castles, e takes d5, e takes d5. Now, after a few forced moves, we've reached one of the positions that's the main battleground in this particular Grunfeld, in this particular line. Black has two main choices that go to different types of games. Rook e8 and bishop f5, I do believe, are the two main lines. Again, the two main lines are rook e8 and bishop f5. Here in this particular game, Carlsen chooses 11, rook to e8. The main idea there is just centralization. Black's pieces go to pretty decent squares. A lot of times black can get play. In one line that I like, you can play moves like b6, knight b4, and bishop f5 and try to sneak the knight into c2. That's an extremely good line for black. But anyway, this is the entire line here. And in this particular line, this particular game, Anand chooses bishop to g5 here. Basically, he's pinning the knight. There's a lot of different lines that could occur here. Just very quickly to let you know some of the different lines there. Rook d1's a line, bishop e3 is a very popular line, bishop f4, and bishop g5. I'm sure that one of the reasons that Anand chose bishop to g5 at this point, this is the move that was played, bishop g5. One of the reasons that Anand had to choose bishop g5 was he's got to be hoping to surprise Magnus Carlsen. I mean, Carlsen is renowned for both his memory and his preparation. His team of people that he has around him do very good preparatory work. I mean, just tremendous work, and he doesn't forget much. So basically, I think Anand here chose one of the least likely variations, a line he thought maybe Carlsen hasn't investigated this line that deeply, and he's hoping to surprise him. That's just a guess, of course, and I could be wrong, but that's just my thoughts there. The move is somewhat unusual. We're going to be following a very important theoretical game between Wojciech and Ponomaryov. H6, bishop to E3, bishop to F5, RAD1. I would have played RFD1 there. That's also a possible move, but bishop F5, RAD1 was the move that Anand actually played there. And now knight E4. This is they're following all just generally standard ideas in the Grunfeld. I used to play the Grunfeld myself. In fact, the main line, if you want to go to www.chessgames.com, you'll see several games that I've played in the Grunfeld. Also, there's a line online that you can find with Google that I played with the Grunfeld here rather recently. But anyway, this is a very important line. These are basically, pretty much standard types of moves, and you wonder what is Anand, what kind of position he was shooting for, or what did he hope to get. Obviously, he had some kind of line that he hoped to get, and he obviously did not get, I think, the key position that he wanted to get in that game. Knight takes E4, bishop takes E4, queen C1, queen F6, and now they get into a very interesting position. Bishop takes H6, queen takes B2. We kind of get an exchange there in the center. I actually like this for black. I don't think white should have followed this line. I could show you dozens of ideas here, ideas that were all generated with the computer, but it would take a very long time. There's some good analysis on the ChessBase website of this game by Grandmaster Alejandro Ramirez Alvarez, and all I can tell you is just go ahead and download that. I'll put the link in the little box just below the video that says show more, and you can check out his analysis as well. But I can show you dozens of different ideas here, but I rather like black now because black basically has a queenside majority. We have 1, 2, 3 pawns on the queen side, whereas white only has 1 pawn. So I think practical chances, just at the very average level, at the normal things happen, that black could be very well favored. Any king and pawn ending might be just a slam dunk win for black. And I usually tell my students you have to evaluate every position in terms of the easiest ending, the type of play a king and pawn ending. And I think right now any king and pawn ending, just a pure king and pawn ending, is going to be one for black, because he simply brings his king to D6 and then shoves his queenside majority, and it's almost impossible for white to prevent that unless he gets a fantastic king position, and his king gets down inside the pawn structure before black's king ever gets activated. But with normal play, I think that black has the advantage here. Queen takes B2, bishop takes B2, knight to G5. All this is logical play. Bishop to D4. Another idea there for black is to simply play bishop to F5, retreat the bishop to F5. But anyway, knight G5, bishop D4, knight takes E4, rook takes E4, bishop F3, rook E7. White has maybe a slight advantage here. He has a protected pass pawn on D5, and he also has the bishop pair. But black at the same time is got good active pieces in his play. His pieces have a lot of scope and have a lot of play. D6, rook D7, bishop to F4, knight to B4. And that's a very good move. That was a good move by Carlsen. He thought a little bit about before playing that move, and I really like that move because the long-term consequences of that move are going to be favorable for, well, one idea is just simply to pick off the A pawn, so white can't simply ignore that move. Rook D2, rook E8. Again, that's another very good move, grabbing the open file. Alvarez gives us an exclam. I looked at some other things, but this is a very good line for Carlsen. And also, too, I think you have to remember that Carlsen only needs a draw. He doesn't need to play the sharpest line available to him because he only needs a draw to draw out the game. Also, too, there's a fairly simple idea here for black. Black can play moves like maybe B6. He's got to get his rooks off the file, but if he can exchange a set of rooks and then maybe play moves like B6, and then the idea is to basically to bring this bishop back around and win this pawn here. So white's got to be a little bit careful here too. Another idea for black is simply double his rooks, and like I said, play B6 and maybe play bishop G7, bishop F8, and this pawn's pretty much a goner. But anyway, these are all ideas for black. Rook C1, rook E6. Again, Carlsen is continuing to surround the pawn on D6. If white takes his eyes off of that pawn, black will win that pawn rather easily. H4, this is a nice little move, gives the white king luft, and also, you know, controls the G5 square. Bishop E5, that's, you know, a nice little move. Again, not the sharpest line available for black, but again, that's one of the ideas there for black, is to exchange off more pieces. Generally, there's a little rule of thumb, and most masters know this, is that black's a little bit uncomfortable here. Obviously, you know, just with normal play, you know, let's say black played a blunder here. He played G5. After pawn takes pawn and bishop G4, white would be winning there. But that's just a blunder. But that's just to give you an idea. It shows that black's uncomfortable, and he doesn't have easy play for his pieces. He doesn't have a lot of good squares for his pieces, so he has to be careful here. So I think when you're uncomfortable, the general rule of thumb is when you're defending, you should try to exchange pieces. So that's what Carlsen does. He's following a well-known idea at the master level. Bishop E5, bishop takes E5, rook takes E5, and now bishop takes B7. That's, you know, just, you know, pushing the pawn. Rook takes B7, D7, knight C6. That's a very important move for Carlsen for his defense. If he doesn't have that move, he just loses badly. Queen, knight takes queen, rook takes queen, king G7, rook D2, and here the players, I do believe agree to a draw. I tried to keep this video relatively short. I didn't want it to drag on the 30 minutes. There didn't seem to be really any point to making the video extremely long. You know, I just wanted to have a video to cover the main sources. Again, if you want to see some good analysis of this game, there's several of them available online, probably the most important of which is some of the videos done by the grandmasters, you know, just shortly after the game, and also the analysis on the ChessBase website by Grandmaster Ramirez Alvarez. So anyway, that pretty much concludes my coverage of this match and concludes my videos. If you enjoy my videos and you enjoy my coverage of this match, and you'd also like my web pages, and you'd like to support my efforts to bring you good chess and bring you the very best chess content that I can, both videos and web pages, please go to the PayPal website. That's www.paypal.com, and make a contribution under my name, which is LifeMasterAJ, under my email rather. And my email is lifemasteraj@yahoo.com. Again, thank you for watching my video, and have a great day.